Governor Wolf is finally doing something about asbestos in schools, and we've got the Inman Connect 2020 wrap-up. Tune in to Toole Time right now. We are back on Toole Time. I'm Tom Toole. She is Jess Lion. And we have got some news coming from the Capitol in Harrisburg relating to schools in Philadelphia and this asbestos issue. We'll touch on that in a second. And we've also got the Inman Connect 2020 wrap-up of some of the major talking points from the conference. So let's get into the local stuff first. So Governor Tom Wolf, he is proposing a plan for $1.1 billion with a B to help eliminate lead and asbestos contamination in Pennsylvania public schools. And to me, I don't know why this hasn't happened sooner. What do you think about all this? What's your take on the plan and what it means for us locally here?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a very reactive approach. Clearly, I was doing a little bit of research, and people have been getting sick. Like last year, there were articles out about it where teachers were coming down with, I think it's like mesothelioma or something, a form of cancer that obviously comes from this type of asbestos and things like that. So I think it's a very reactive approach, and it's sad that this wasn't taken care of or addressed sooner, because your kids are in these schools. These are your most valuable things in your life. Like, these are your children, and the teachers who do so much and go above and beyond to teach the students. So I think that, yeah, this is great that it's happening now, but it's, rather than being proactive and taking care of this a while ago, why does it have to be now when people are getting sick?
It's funny because we sell real estate, and one of the things you have to fill out if you're a seller and your home was built before 1978 is a lead-based paint disclosure.
Yeah.
So there's a federal law about this. That's a legal disclosure that has to happen. And Wolf, I appreciate him getting involved. To me, this is all about Philadelphia School District not doing something sooner. I mean, this has been going on for a while, and one of the challenges that was identified here, which is an accurate observation, is a lot of these buildings were built when these materials were popular. Mm-hmm. So it's no different than someone does something and then they realize it's bad for you and then they have to change it. That's what happened with construction here. So I don't fault the issue coming up. To your point, there's a lot of research and data surrounding that people are getting sick by this, number one. Secondly, we're doing this in residential real estate. Why isn't this happening in schools? And, it's another example of the city being underfunded, the school district being underfunded, and that has to do with delinquent property taxes. It has to do with where the money's being spent, budget appropriations, all this other stuff. So I'm glad the state is getting involved, because we've seen that Philadelphia just does not have their act together when it comes to these things. And, I mean, there's stuff like they have, like, leaking pipes and, like, all sorts of stuff that's going on. And I know it's one of the reasons why people don't send their kids to public school.
Right.
In Philadelphia, that you see that move of when kids turn 5, they are out of the city. And, unfortunately, not everyone can afford to do that. So there's a big challenge here, and I'm glad to see the state getting involved, because I have zero confidence that Philadelphia would have done anything about this.
Maybe they should stop spending money on mosquito devices.
Well, I mean, I think it's going to cost more than mosquito devices. They need $14 million to fix the most recent problem at what was the school? I forget which one, because there's a second one now. There's a second school that came out and said, hey, we got the same issue. And this has been in the news for a while now. So
I'm not sure.
It doesn't matter. I mean, the point is they're spending $14 million on eliminating asbestos in one school, and now there's a second school where it's becoming prevalent. So it's a bigger problem, and the infrastructure in the city as a whole. I mean, the roads are a mess. There's potholes everywhere. There's problems, and until they start collecting taxes at the right rate and doing things that are going to make sense, this is what's going to happen there over and over again.
I feel bad for the parents too, because from the articles that I was reading, they still are skeptical about sending their kids back to these schools, and was it done correctly? And I just think that they are not being provided information as to what's actually going on and what the effects are, so that should be done too.
Well, I mean, there's ways to test for this stuff appropriately too, like an air quality test and these other things. So people do this for residential houses. We deal with this all the time. So I'm having a challenge here. Where's the city involved in this? And then again, there's always these backroom deals that go on, and Philadelphia is notorious for this. So I'm glad that Wolf is getting involved, because I don't see this getting fixed on the local level. This has got to come from the state.
Yeah. I'm glad something is getting done too.
Hopefully these kids have a place to go to school. So, on the real estate side, a little more upbeat here. Inman Connect 2020 New York just wrapped up last week. And so if you don't know what Inman Connect is, it's a big conference. It's like a trade show. There's people that have the newest tech and real estate are there. They have a bunch of speakers on stage, like CEOs of companies. It's a big conference for the industry. And that's my phone.
That's cool. Like when Apple does a release?
Sort of. I mean, this is more like Inman is, they have all, it's like a trade show, right? So if you've ever been to like a convention where they have all the different products you could buy and they have the booths and all that stuff. So it's the same sort of thing. And then they have these panels that you can get the stream on Inman's website. It's something that lets people know it's kind of like a think tank for the industry at a very large level.
Very cool.
So what came out of it, I saw three major talking points that came out of it, and that's what I wanted to share with everyone here. So the first one, where do you want to start, Jess?
We could start with pocket listings.
Pocket listings. We've talked about this before, right? So there was a pair of industry leaders, Brian Donaldson, who's the CEO of Bright, and then there was Drusy Hernandez, who's the VP of Development for Fulton Grace Realty. They both are on stage, and they were talking about pocket listings. And there's been this ban on pocket and off-market listings that was approved last year. Bright has been leading the charge. NAR kind of followed suit. But this, to me, has been Bright's agenda. And they're one of the largest MLSs. So right now there's numerous MLSs across the country. And they came out and said this is going to benefit consumers. There's going to be a huge impact there. And the interesting thing I heard from Donaldson, who's, again, the CEO of Bright, if a consumer can go to one place and get all the information, they're better served. I'm going to come back to that in a second. They talked about implementing the policy, how it's going to give everyone a fair shot for buying properties. It's going to give the seller the right exposure. This is all fine. And I don't have an issue with, giving the seller the most exposure. In fact, that's what I strive to do with every listing I take.
Exactly.
What I find interesting is they said that the consumer can go to one place to get all the information. Well, they can't do that with an MLS because you can't go and get information for homes in California in the Bright MLS. You got to go to Zillow or Trulia or one of these other websites. And then John Coyle, who's also with Bright, he came out and said, well, it doesn't make sense here because I'm licensed to practice in a whole state, but I can't get the information for the whole state. So you and we can go sell a home in Pittsburgh if we wanted to.
Right.
Or somewhere else in Pennsylvania, Erie, wherever. That's not covered by our MLS, so we can't actually go and get that information. Even Allentown, which is not terribly far from here, and I'm not saying agents to be that widespread.
Yeah.
But the point is the licensing law is this, and Bright covers like a component of it. Why isn't there like a national MLS? Like that to me is probably the biggest takeaway. I don't have an issue with the pocket listings so much because they have a policy there that's been very clear on it. We know what the rules are. There's a couple people that complain like Compass and Assist to Sell, and it really doesn't benefit that person that doesn't want their home on the MLS. They're forcing them to not use an agent. Otherwise,
is there like a waiver that you can sign or something, having it withheld or something like that?
You can sign a waiver. However, if they want you to market to other agents, you can't do that. They can only be like within the company. So we can only market to RE/MAX Mainline, which we have 70-some agents. That's great. Well, we can't market to anyone at any of the other companies, like a Berkshire Hathaway or a Keller Williams or Compass or whoever. So it's really a challenge. I mean, I don't see where that benefits somebody. And I'll give an example here, and then you can kind of.
What happens to the people who don't want their property listed because of like a restraining order or they're some type of celebrity or something like that?
So that's the rub. They're driven away from working with an agent, in my view.
So what is their option? I feel like the option is good for a majority, but not like everyone. There's a percentage of people who are being forced to sell for sale by owner.
Well, or a non-participating member, so they don't work with Bright. So there's a company out there. It's called Rex or something. One of these discount brokerages that'll be gone in 3 years. You can write that down right now, just like Purple Bricks. But they don't participate in the MLS, but they have a feed to Zillow. So they're getting all those people inquiring on Zillow, which is fine if that's your business strategy. You bring up a really valid point. I mean, this is a pretty common practice. You go to California, for example. That happens all the time out there. And it just doesn't. That's the issue with this policy. Everything else, fine. It's this particular part is where, I mean, you mentioned a restraining order.
Yeah.
So what do you think about all this?
I mean, that was my biggest issue, but you said that the issue is us not having access to all of this. Like, Bright doesn't really show us any listings across the state. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally, I don't care because I'm not going to sell a home across the state. I wouldn't.
Well, neither am I.
So,
I have, Allentown's kind of far from me.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the point is, when you have the CEO saying consumers should be able to go all to one place, well, it's really not accurate because you can't go to all to one place. Yeah. So, the messaging here is very interesting. And really what's going on is Bright is in a war with, like, Zillow right now. I mean, there's agents and then there's Zillow. And then like these old brokerages in Zillow and these other companies. That, to me, is what they're talking about here more than anything else. They don't want it coming soon on Zillow. They don't want Compass coming soon. Or Redfin does the same thing. They have that Redfin coming soon stuff, too. So this debate's not going away. And what I just find interesting here is that I had this situation come up with a client of mine where they came from California. They didn't want their home on the market for a month at the end of the year because they had like family coming in. They had guests in town the entire time.
Understandable.
Unless there was a serious buyer that wanted to come through. And how do we market that so that people can come through at the same time by being compliant with the policy? So we listed the property as coming soon for a period of time, and then we had to comply, but it really didn't help the seller there in a lot of instances.
It wasn't in their favor at all.
I mean, so having to go through all that rather than just say, okay, we're gonna list it here, and they don't want their days on market to accrue because people see high days on market
and they run away from the house.
Yeah, they think there's something wrong with it. So I mean, practically the policy's not making a lot of sense.
Yeah,
conceptually.
I don't think so.
Okay, I don't have an issue with it. So that's just not going to go away. And Bright is really pushing this.
Yeah. Well, then I feel like that kind of went into the next one about when they said that you're going to have a struggle if you're an independent agent.
Yes. So the Realogy CEO, Ryan Schneider, so that's like Coldwell Banker and those sort of companies, it's a bigger brand. Remax CEO Adam Contos and Exit CEO Tammy Bonnell were on a panel. And they talked about self-care and consumer service. And really what Ryan Schneider had said, for me, it's all about how agents and franchises tell us we're doing supporting them. If you're not with a big player who can provide a lot of things for you, whether it's marketing, technology, lead gen, data, it's going to be a struggle. So in short, what he's saying is it's going to be a struggle for people that are independent or doing things on their own or don't have the right resources. That's really what I took, because an independent brokerage could have all the resources. Mm-hmm. What do you think about all this?
I think that there's going to be few who do have the resources and they'll survive, but they will be the few. I agree with what they're saying. If you aren't providing, they talk a lot in this article about like building a better consumer experience and everything. If you don't have the resources to do that, you better get with someone big who does, or else the experience that you're providing to your client isn't going to be up to snuff. It's just not going to be the same that they can get with someone else.
Well, and what do today's customers want? They want easier, faster, hassle-free convenience. So, and a lot of these resources are tech-enabled. I mean, do you have a place where they can go look at homes? Can you sign stuff on your phone? How many homes do you really have to go see before you buy something? What's the communication going to be like? And if the consumer's not getting that stuff, they're just going to go somewhere else. And one person can only do so much.
Yeah.
We all have the same amount of time in the day.
You're a team.
Well, you got 24 hours, I got 24 hours, right? It's not like you have to leverage that and use the resources appropriately. And there's some people that, they don't take professional photos of their listings, and they're doing it themselves, and they don't have a CRM to keep track of people, and they don't know how to pick up a phone call from Zillow. That's hurting the consumer.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with this, and that's not surprising coming from the panel there. You got Realogy, Remax, and Exit, and ultimately the consumer, they want more, and they also are embracing automation more, is what I've seen over the past 18, 24 months. They're okay with, hey, someone sends me an automatic feed, and then I respond to it, and it alerts the agent. You do that all the time, right?
Don't want to talk to you until they're ready to go and see the property, but as long as you can communicate with them in the way that they want to, whether it be like through Zillow or however, that's fine. Communicate the way they want to communicate, and then get in front of them and then talk to them.
100%. And that's where, you talk about lead gen. It's also like training, like understanding like how it all works. Because today's client doesn't want the same thing they did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I can say that definitively. Doing business in 2010 was I remember the first time I got DocuSign. I'm like, what is this amazing? I don't have to meet this person. Like, we can get it signed. We got a deadline coming up. And
It's faster.
Well, it was better for everybody. Because
Yeah.
then they don't have to drive to my office. I'm not meeting them somewhere. They're not faxing something. I mean, it's so, to me, that's spot on. I don't know that it's anything new. It's good to keep hearing it again because I am clear that the playing field, while everyone's bright, may say they're only trying to even the playing field. It's not going to be even.
You're going to have to get with someone who's killing it.
Agreed. Most controversial thing we heard. So there was a panel of venture capitalists and industry observers, and the topic of Compass came up. And they said there that Compass is likely to avoid the fate of the startup WeWork, despite being backed by the same massive investment fund, SoftBank. I found this one very interesting. So I don't know how deep you want me to go, or you want to give me your take first.
I mean, these people are all there supposed to be like backing up Compass. So like we talked about, like what else would they say other than everything's fine? Apparently there are some things going on in the background where it might lead you to think they're not doing fine. But I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Okay, so last week, according to Real Deal, it's a New York real estate blog, and they talk about some other major markets too. Compass laid off 40 people in the back end, right? Not like agents. So a lot of it was in their tech department, mergers and acquisitions. When people are laying off the staff, it's usually not a good sign that things are going well.
They're saying that it's all strategy and it was intentional and they knew what they were doing, but I'm with you. If something's going on and people are getting laid off, I'm questioning what's happening here.
So when I pull up the article from Real Deal, and I find this interesting because, to your point, what are they supposed to say? Like, hey, we're screwed. Like, no one's ever going to say that. So, and this is at a premier real estate event. So they laid off 40 employees across IT, marketing, merger and acquisition. And what they said was they're going to kind of pause their acquisitions and expansion, at least for the short term. And what I also know is going on is that the way they're recruiting people, they're offering these big bonuses to agents for a few, commitment for a couple years, and that's fine. I get a lot of agents wanting to cash in on that. That certainly makes sense. I also see where they're putting their offices up. I mean, they have an office in Suburban Square right now, which is like the highest rent along the main line. It's a retail space. Banana Republic and Macy's no longer have stores there.
That's wild.
Ruby's Diner just moved out, and that place had been there for like years, and they didn't renew their lease because it was too expensive. So when I see that sort of stuff happening, and then they're cutting people, it's never a good sign when you cut the staff. I mean, what would you think if we cut our staff here at our team?
Our business is suffering because we can't afford to pay the staff.
Where's the profit, right?
Yeah.
So that's obviously the concern here, and what with the Compass's pitch is that our tech is better than everybody else's. I don't know how much better anyone's tech is really going to be than anybody else's right now. We've gone out and gotten our own. Remax has they have this new Bouge software. Keller
What
Williams.
is Compass's tech?
It's a CRM like everyone else has.
Okay.
So we use Boomtown, right? So maybe this is a better.
Yeah.
And to me, I've looked at enough of these things.
You would know.
I don't know if I know. Practically, Boomtown works really well from us.
Boomtown's great.
And the more we've embraced it, right?
We've been doing so well.
The higher the conversion's gotten.
A lot better, yeah.
So that's how the tech's supposed to work, because most of these people get the tech and they never use it.
Yeah.
And we were probably guilty of that a little bit.
Maybe.
Some people, whatever. I mean, the point is, the more we embraced it, the better it's been working for us. So, and what I love about Boomtown is that it's not affiliated with a company. Like you don't have to, like, your people are not stuck at Compass or Remax or
what if you're
anywhere
Compass
else
and it sucks and
well,
you want to get Boomtown and that's like what the heck?
Or the Keller Williams. I mean, they've been talking about how they have AI and all this stuff, right? So that's their pitch. I don't know how much better it is. Now, what I will agree with is the idea of keeping them in the store is really critical, where they're coming to you instead of going to Zillow, where maybe they get another agent, or they go to Realtor and they get in touch with another agent. If you can keep them in the store,
you control servicing them.
Well, and they're coming to you for the information instead of just looking for the house they want to buy, which is all people really look for anyway. Most consumers don't know any better. They're just like, hey, I want more information about the house. Let me hit this button.
Yeah.
So I can't sit here and say based on what I'm seeing on the ground that Compass is going to avoid the same fate as WeWork because they were at like a grow-at-all-cost company for a while, and when you fire that many staff members, that's not a good thing.
What had happened? I guess we'll see.
We don't know. I can look at the facts and then based on what business principles are. So I mean, but at any company, you see people firing staff like that. It's not a good sign.
Yeah. Maybe they'll revert back to being a traditional brokerage.
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I don't think they've been anything traditional. I mean, it's but that's we'll see what happens. I mean, of course they're going to say. Of course, they're going to say everything's fine. I mean, it's really going to be up to their agents actually going out and selling houses. That's the fundamental. They got to be recruiting the right people and hope that works. Because if they're not out there gaining market share and selling more homes, that's how you bring revenue in.
Yeah. All right. That's cool.
So that's what happened at Inman Connect. 3 things there. Went a little long. Thought they were pretty important, relevant. What do you got for some motivation here, Jess?
Well, the Super Bowl was last night. Well, on Sunday when this airs.
Yes.
So I have a Vince Lombardi quote, and all I know is that's what the trophy is called, the Vince Lombardi Trophy. So you can expound on that if you want. But he said, once you learn to quit, it becomes a habit.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that that there's actually we talked about the dip, right? Mm-hmm. So if you don't know what the dip is, it's a Seth Godin concept. He's like one of the most famous business writers out there, where like you start doing something and you're like really excited about it. And your effort's high no matter what, even if it's hard or you don't know what you're getting into. And then like a couple weeks later, the real work starts, and like you don't see results right away, and it's like, oh man, maybe I should quit. Like that's what happens, and that's and then you kind of get further down the line. Let's say instead of weeks, you're a couple months in, and our business is what, a 3-month delay on all your actions,
9 days,
right? So like you don't want to quit like 2.5 months in when you're not seeing results. That's like the worst time to quit, and when people start doing that, and you see like the serial job hoppers, like they're at a place like 6-9 months, or the infamous New Year's resolution, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the gym. When people quit, the most common day is January 17th. It's like everyone quits the resolution. Like by February, like 80% of them are done.
A little bit more than 2 weeks in.
Yeah, because it's hard to do whatever they're trying to do, and health is like the number one. So when people start quitting that frequently, yeah, of course it becomes a habit. And Vince Lombardi. So I told you who he was before the show.
Yeah.
He was the
That's
Super
so
Bowl.
Cool.
He won the first Super Bowl, Packers head coach. And, really, I think you look at like the Super Bowl itself, right? A couple years ago, the Patriots were down 38-3, and they didn't quit and came back and beat the Falcons. Sorry, Doug Edgerton. I know you're watching. So that's like
that's wild.
But that could have been, and it was like in the third quarter. Like so. That team doesn't know how to quit, right? Yeah. I mean, that's Tom Brady, that's Bill Belichick. They don't know how to quit. But then you look at some other teams, maybe. I'm trying to think of some examples here. So the Minnesota Vikings, like they won a number of Super Bowls, or they lost a number of Super Bowls in a row, and you would see their body language on the sidelines early in these games if they got down. Like you could tell they knew they were in trouble, and that's a great example of what happens there.
It was a habit, and
I'm not saying it was a habit for those guys, but they find themselves in the same situation. You're like, oh no, not again. So, it's like quitting. I mean, it's you never see those people win, and winners typically don't quit. So,
absolutely. For me, the operative thing here is that you learn to quit when you're faced with a challenge or something that you're doing. I don't think that you actually think about quitting until someone presents that option to you. But once you do realize that, oh, okay, I can quit, then it becomes a habit and you get comfortable to that feel. Like you're going to revert to what's most comfortable for you, and quitting is better than continuing and pushing on. So it's definitely learned. So if you can push back and just, I guess, get that voice out of your head or get away from people who are saying, oh, you can quit or you can do it later, that's going to be what's best in order for you to accomplish what you're looking to do.
You really summed that up well, Jess. Nice job. Catch you guys next week.